Welcome to LinesToGo installation videos. Today we will be replacing brake lines on a 1999 GMC Sierra extended cab standard box using LinesToGo part number BLC-103-SS for all of the lines except for the rear axle lines and BLC-121-SS for the rear axle lines. While this particular installation is being performed on a 99 GMC Sierra, these sets of lines will also fit the following year, make, and models as shown on your screen now. LinesToGo lines are made using original equipment end forms and fittings that are CNC bent for an easy and precise installation. We have also upgraded to stainless steel braided Teflon hoses for rust protection and to prevent surface fouling. These have an unlimited shelf life and anti-static PTFE liner. This set of LinesToGo lines are made using 304L stainless steel for rust resistance that exceeds OEM standards. Tech tip: disconnect the battery before working on a vehicle to reduce the risk of shorting out the battery on tools or lines. LinesToGo lines are made with a sectional design for easier installation. We also use color-coded unions on our sectioned lines. Just match the colors at the connections. Make sure to depressurize the fuel system before starting the installation. Tools required: 7mm, 13mm, 15mm, and 22mm sockets and ratchet, 5/16 of an inch, 10mm, and 14mm wrenches, Phillips and flat blade screwdrivers, cutting pliers, drain pan, jack and jack stands. The level of difficulty for this installation is considered to be medium. To depressurize the fuel system, locate the fuel pump fuse using your owner's manual and remove it. Start the vehicle and wait for the engine to stall. Make sure to replace the fuse once completed. Use a 5/16 of an inch wrench to disconnect the negative battery terminal. Use a 14mm wrench to remove both threaded fittings from the master cylinder. Raise and support the vehicle and remove all four wheels using a 22mm socket. Use a Phillips screwdriver or a pick to remove the plastic push clips that secure the driver's side front mud flap and remove it from the vehicle. Use a flat blade screwdriver or pick to remove the plastic push clips that secure the driver's side front inner fender and remove it from the vehicle. Inside of the driver's front wheel well, use a 14mm wrench to remove the threaded fitting from the top of the left front flex hose. Remove the brake lines from the plastic clips along the frame inside of the left front wheel well. Use a pair of cutting pliers to cut the right front brake line at the front of the left front wheel well. Remove the brake lines from the plastic clips underneath the driver's side of the cab. Use a 14mm wrench to remove the threaded fittings from the ABS module. If the fittings are seized to the lines, you can cut the lines using a pair of cutting pliers and remove the fittings after using a socket or wrench. Remove the primary and secondary master cylinder brake lines from the vehicle. Remove the left front brake line and the rear section of the right front brake line from the vehicle. Inside of the right front wheel well, use a 14mm wrench to remove the threaded fitting from the top of the right front flex hose. Use a 15mm socket to remove the 5 bolts that secure the front plastic cover and remove it from the vehicle. Remove the right front brake line from the plastic clips along the front crossmember. Remove the front section of the right front brake line from the vehicle. Use a pair of cutting pliers to cut the rear brake line in front of the fuel tank and remove the forward section from the vehicle. Remove the 3 quick connect fittings from the charcoal canister by depressing the plastic tabs. Use a 13mm socket to remove the bolt that secures the charcoal canister and remove the canister by pulling it towards the center of the vehicle. Disconnect the 2 fuel line quick connect fittings by depressing the 2 plastic tabs. Use a 7mm socket to remove the 3 screws that secure the fuel filler neck into position. Place a support underneath the fuel tank and use a 15mm socket to remove the 2 bolts that secure the fuel tank straps. Start to lower the fuel tank, making sure to feed the filler neck over the frame. Once the tank is lowered enough, disconnect the 2 electrical connectors on the sending unit. Continue to lower the tank and remove it from underneath the vehicle. Use a 14mm wrench to remove the threaded fitting from the top of the rear flex hose. Remove the rear section of the rear brake line from the plastic clips along the frame and remove the line from the vehicle. At the rear axle, use a 14mm wrench to remove both fittings from the rear flex hose union. Use a 14mm wrench to remove the threaded fitting from the left rear flex hose and remove the left rear axle line from the vehicle. Use a 14mm wrench to remove the threaded fitting from the right rear flex hose and remove the right rear axle line from the vehicle. To begin the installation of the LinesToGo stainless steel brake lines, we will start with the axle line set labeled BLC-121-SS. Start by installing the right rear axle line labeled 06B into position. Start one fitting into the right rear flex hose and the other fitting into the rear flex hose union. Tighten both fittings using a 14mm wrench. Next, install the left rear axle line labeled 06A into position. Start one fitting into the left rear flex hose and the other fitting into the rear flex hose union. Tighten both fittings using a 14mm wrench. Next, we will install the contents of the LinesToGo set BLC-103-SS. Install the rearmost section of the rear LinesToGo brake line labeled 05B into position. Start the rear fitting into the top of the rear flex hose and secure the line into the clips along the frame. Install the next section of the rear LinesToGo brake line labeled 05A into position. Start the front threaded fitting into the top driver's side port in the ABS module by hand. Connect the 2 sections of line using the supplied union, noting the LinesToGo color-coded connection. Tighten the fittings in the rear flex hose and the ABS module using a 14mm wrench. Tighten the LinesToGo union using 2 14mm wrenches. Next, install the first section of the right front LinesToGo brake line labeled 04A into position. Start the rear threaded fitting into the top central port in the ABS module by hand. Secure the line into the plastic clips. Next, install the final section of the right front LinesToGo brake line labeled 04B into position. Secure the line into the plastic clips along the front crossmember. Start one fitting into the top of the right front flex hose. Connect the 2 sections of line at the front of the left front wheel well using the supplied union, noting the LinesToGo color-coded connection. Tighten the fittings in the right front flex hose and the ABS module using a 14mm wrench. Tighten the LinesToGo union using 2 14mm wrenches. Next, install the left front LinesToGo brake line labeled 03 into position. Start the front threaded fitting into the top of the left front flex hose. Start the rear fitting into the top passenger side port in the ABS module by hand. Secure the line into the plastic clips along the frame. Tighten both fittings using a 14mm wrench. Next, install the secondary LinesToGo brake line labeled 02 into position. Start the rear fitting into the bottom driver's side port in the ABS module by hand. Start the other fitting into the front port in the master cylinder. Tighten both fittings using a 14mm wrench. Next, install the primary LinesToGo brake line labeled 01 into position. Start the rear threaded fitting into the bottom passenger side port in the ABS module by hand. Start the front threaded fitting into the rear port in the master cylinder. Secure the line into the plastic clips along the frame. Tighten both fittings using a 14mm wrench. Bleed all four wheels using a 10mm wrench, making sure to keep the master cylinder reservoir topped up with fluid. You can now replace the fuel tank and begin to raise it into position, making sure to route the fuel filler neck over the frame. Once the tank is high enough, replace the two electrical connectors at the sending unit. Continue to raise the fuel tank. Replace the fuel tank straps and secure them using a 15mm socket and remove the support. Secure the filler neck using a 7mm socket. Connect the supply and return line quick connections at the front of the fuel tank. Replace the charcoal canister into position and secure it using a 13mm socket. Reconnect the fittings at the charcoal canister. Replace the plastic lower cover at the front of the vehicle using a 15mm socket. Replace the left front inner fender and secure it using the plastic push clips. Replace the mud flap using the plastic push clips. Replace all four wheels and torque to your manufacturer's recommended specification using a 22mm socket. Reconnect the negative battery terminal using a 5/16 inch wrench. This concludes the installation of stainless steel brake lines on a 99 GMC Sierra extended cab standard box using LinesToGo part number BLC-103-SS and BLC-121SS. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or would like to purchase the lines you saw today, please call us at 1-855-781-5992. Email us at info@linetogo.com. or check out our website link below. Don't forget to take advantage of our free next day shipping. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button below, and we will see you on our next video.